The restaurant shimmered with elegance that evening. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, scattering fragments of golden light across polished marble floors. Every table was adorned with flickering candles, their flames dancing to the soft hum of a grand piano in the corner. Guests moved about gracefully, dressed in gowns and tailored suits, as if the night itself had been handpicked for luxury. Among the clinking glasses and hushed conversations, Amara stepped in quietly. She wasn't dressed in expensive designer wear. Her simple navy blue dress was one she had borrowed from her cousin for this one night out. She didn't belong to the world of wealth and extravagance, but she had been invited by her friend to celebrate a birthday. The problem was, her friend was running late, and Amara felt completely out of place standing near the entrance. The hostess smiled politely. "Good evening, ma'am. Do you have a reservation?" Amara hesitated, fumbling with her purse. She had no idea under whose name the table was booked. Her friend had texted her, "I'll be late. Just go in and find a seat. I'll explain when I arrive." Nervously, Amara's eyes swept across the room. She spotted a beautifully set table near the center of the restaurant. Nobody was seated there yet, and it looked perfectly arranged for two. Perhaps that was the one her friend had reserved. Without asking further questions, she whispered, "Yes, I think it's under Rachel," and the hostess nodded, leading her to the table. Amara sat down, relieved to finally escape the uneasy glances she felt at the entrance. She placed her small purse on her lap and exhaled. For a moment, she let herself enjoy the setting, the soft music, the aroma of fine cuisine, the elegance she rarely got to experience. Minutes later, a tall man in a perfectly tailored suit approached. His presence was magnetic, dark hair neatly styled, sharp jawline, and an expression that carried both confidence and mystery. He was used to being noticed, yet he walked with a calm composure. He stopped at her table. "This is my table." Amara froze. Her heart skipped. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought it was my friend's reservation. I must have made a mistake." She hurried to grab her purse and stand up. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment. The last thing she wanted was to cause a scene in a place like this. But before she could move away, the man raised his hand slightly, gesturing for her to stay. "Sit," he said firmly, though not unkindly. She blinked at him. "No, really, I shouldn't. This was a mistake. I said sit." His tone softened the second time, carrying a strange blend of authority and intrigue. Amara slowly sat back down, her fingers tightening around the strap of her purse. I didn't mean to intrude." The man's lips curved into the faintest smile. Most people would have walked away by now. But you, he pulled out the chair across from her and sat down. "You're already here. Why not stay?" She stared at him, bewildered. "But aren't you expecting someone?" He leaned back, watching her with eyes that seemed to read deeper than her words. "I was. But plans change." Amara swallowed nervously. The last thing she wanted was to interfere with his evening, especially if he was waiting for someone important. Yet, there was something about his presence, commanding, yet not threatening, that made it impossible to simply walk away. The waiter appeared, addressing the man respectfully. "Good evening, Mr. Sterling. Would you like me to bring your usual?" The name hit Amara like a jolt. Sterling. She had heard that name before. Ethan Sterling. The millionaire businessman who owned several companies, the man often featured in magazines and financial news. Some called him a genius, others a ruthless strategist. She never imagined she'd end up at his table by mistake. Ethan glanced at her before replying to the waiter. "2 menus, please." "Yes, sir." When the waiter left, Amara's voice came out shaky. "You don't have to order for me. I really don't belong here. You do now," Ethan interrupted calmly, resting his elbows on the table. "Tell me your name." Amara hesitated, then answered quietly, "Amara." "Amara," he repeated, as if testing the sound of it. "So tell me, Amara, why were you dining alone tonight?" "I wasn't supposed to be. My friend invited me. She's late, and I must have sat at the wrong table. I swear, I didn't mean to take yours." His eyes narrowed with interest. "And yet, here you are. At my table." Amara felt her pulse quicken. She wasn't sure if she was trapped in a misunderstanding or if fate had played a strange trick on her. Still, There was no hostility in his gaze, only curiosity. The waiter returned, setting the menus down. Ethan didn't even glance at his. Instead, he folded his hands and studied Amara as though she was far more fascinating than any meal. Finally, she said, "Look, Mr. Sterling, thank you for being gracious about this. But I really should wait for my friend elsewhere. I don't want to inconvenience you." Ethan leaned forward, his voice low and deliberate. "You're not an inconvenience. In fact, I'd rather you stay. Tell me, do you always run away this quickly when life makes a mistake in your favor?" His words caught her off guard. She looked down, unsure how to respond. After a pause, she whispered, "I'm not sure I belong at a table like this." Ethan's gaze softened, though his tone remained steady. "Sometimes, Amara, the tables we sit at, by choice or by mistake, are exactly the ones we were meant to." Something about the way he said it made her stop resisting. She set her purse aside, took a breath, and stayed seated. That night, Amara found herself sharing a meal with Ethan Sterling, the millionaire who could have asked her to leave but instead refused to let her go. As the evening unfolded, she would learn that behind his wealth and sharp reputation lay a man who, for reasons she couldn't yet understand, chose to keep her in his world, even if only for one night. And Amara would discover that sometimes the smallest mistakes lead to the most life-changing encounters. The waiter returned, setting down 2 glasses of sparkling water. Amara lifted hers delicately, hoping to calm her nerves. She could hardly believe what was happening. Of all the tables she could have chosen, she had stumbled into the company of one of the city's most powerful men. Across from her, Ethan Sterling leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. The soft glow of candlelight reflected off his sharp features, making him seem even more striking. But it wasn't his appearance that unsettled Amara, it was his eyes. He looked at her as though he was peeling away her carefully built layers, trying to see who she truly was. "So, Amara," he began, his voice smooth and measured. "What do you do when you're not accidentally sitting at strangers' tables?" The question pulled a small laugh from her lips, surprising even herself. "I work at a bookstore," she admitted. "It's not glamorous, but I love being surrounded by stories." Ethan tilted his head slightly, studying her. "A bookstore," he repeated, as though the word itself fascinated him. "In a world where everyone is chasing digital screens, you chose paper and ink." "It's simple," Amara replied softly. "Books don't judge you. They don't care who you are or how much money you make. They just take you somewhere else." For a moment, silence lingered between them. Ethan's expression softened, the sharpness fading from his gaze. "I can understand that," he said quietly, almost as if he were confessing something. "Sometimes, I wish I could disappear into someone else's story instead of living mine." Amara blinked, caught off guard by the vulnerability in his tone. She had expected arrogance, perhaps even indifference, but not this. But your life, it's in magazines. People admire you." He let out a low, humorless chuckle. "Admire, envy, despise, it all blurs together. The truth is, Amara, most people only see the fortune, not the man behind it." She leaned forward slightly, curiosity overcoming her caution. "And what does the man behind it feel?" Ethan's eyes flickered with something she couldn't name, loneliness, perhaps, or exhaustion. "He feels tired of being surrounded by people who want something from him. Investors want more money, associates want more power, women." His voice trailed off, but the weight of his meaning hung in the air. Amara lowered her gaze. She wasn't sure what to say. She wasn't used to hearing the rich complain about the emptiness of wealth. But something in his tone was undeniably genuine. "I don't want anything from you," she whispered without thinking. Ethan's eyes locked onto hers. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then, slowly, a faint smile curved his lips. "That," he said softly, "is why I asked you to stay." The waiter returned with their meals, carefully setting down dishes neither Amara could pronounce. She stared at the beautifully plated food, then back at Ethan. "I'm not sure I belong here," she admitted again. "You keep saying that," Ethan replied, cutting into his steak. "Why?" "Because," she hesitated, searching for the right words. "Because this is your world, not mine. I don't have money or power. I don't wear designer clothes or dine in places like this. I'm just ordinary. Ethan's fork paused midair. He studied her for a long moment, then set it down. Do you know what the problem is with most people I meet, Amara? They're extraordinary on the outside, dressed in the finest clothes, saying all the right things, but completely empty inside. You may think you're ordinary, but I'd take your honesty over their pretense any day. Her chest tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. She lowered her eyes to her plate, embarrassed by the sudden warmth rising to her cheeks. They ate in silence for a while, though it was not an uncomfortable one. The hum of the piano filled the space between them. Amara found herself stealing glances at Ethan, noticing details she hadn't before, the faint crease at the corner of his eyes when he was deep in thought, the way he rolled his cufflinks absent-mindedly, the quiet strength in his posture. Finally, she broke the silence. Why were you dining alone tonight? Don't men like you usually have someone? Ethan's gaze darkened slightly. I was supposed to meet someone, he admitted. But when you sat down, I realized perhaps fate had other plans. Amara tilted her head. Fate? Yes, Ethan said firmly. Most people don't believe in it. But I do. The world doesn't make mistakes. It places people in your path for a reason. Even if it's something as simple as sitting at the wrong table. His words sent a strange shiver through her. For the first time in a long while, she wondered if perhaps her life, so ordinary, so routine, was about to change in ways she couldn't yet imagine. As the evening stretched on, Amara relaxed more than she expected. She told Ethan about her love for old literature, how she spent weekends scribbling stories she never showed anyone, how she often wondered if her life would ever amount to more than small paychecks and borrowed dresses. Ethan listened intently, never interrupting, never dismissing her words. His questions were thoughtful, as though he genuinely cared about the answers. When she asked about him, however, his replies were measured. He spoke of his businesses, yes, but only in fragments. He talked instead about the nights he felt suffocated in silence, the days when success felt more like a cage than a crown. At one point, Amara found herself saying, "You know, for a man who could have anything, you don't seem very happy." Ethan's smile was faint, almost sad. That's the irony of it, Amara. The more you have, the harder it is to know what you really want. Her heart ached at his words. She realized then that beneath the title of millionaire, he was just a man searching for something real. By the time the plates were cleared and dessert was offered, Amara had forgotten the embarrassment of her mistaken seat. She had forgotten her friend's lateness, forgotten the whispers of wealthy guests around them. All that existed was the strange, undeniable connection between her and Ethan. As they sipped coffee, Ethan leaned forward. Tell me honestly, if you had known who I was when you first sat down, would you have stayed? Amara thought about it. Then she shook her head. No, I would have been too intimidated. Ethan chuckled softly. Then I'm glad you didn't know. There was a pause. Then he added, more seriously, I don't want this night to end with you thinking it was just a coincidence. Because it wasn't. Her brows furrowed. What do you mean? I mean, he said, his voice low and steady, I don't believe in mistakes. You were meant to sit at this table tonight, Amara. And I was meant to meet you. Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't know how to respond. The intensity in his gaze made her pulse race. Finally, she whispered, and what happens now? Ethan's smile returned, but this time it carried something different, something promising. Now, he said softly, we see where this story goes. That night, as Amara stepped out of the restaurant, the cool night air brushed against her skin. Her heart was still racing, her mind spinning. She had walked in expecting nothing more than an awkward wait for a late friend. Instead, she had stumbled into the path of a man who lived in a world far beyond hers, yet who made her feel seen in a way she never had before. And as she glanced back one last time, she saw Ethan Sterling standing at the doorway, watching her leave with an expression she couldn't quite read.